Buenas noches. Let's see if I can get this one. I think she took my thing. I'm lost without it. So like Yvonne says, I was born in Cuba. Did she say that? No. Probably not. Can you hear me? Maybe I should take this off. Is that better?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was raised in the US and I'm an architectural photographer, an art photographer. And first I want to tell you a little bit about myself, about background, so that I'll lead you to where I'm at right now with the book. I have 3 wonderful children and 2 wonderful grandchildren. I love them. And I graduated from RIT with the Bachelor of Fine Arts and a minor in architecture photography. So I'll pass on to New York, where the school is. And I remember going up there like in May, mid-May, with my wife, ex-wife now, and my firstborn. And we went into campus and we stopped. And I said to her, we're totally school here. She said, what are you talking about? I said, we're totally school. She goes, but this is a beautiful place. This is look, there's sunbathing at 60 degrees weather, and they're super white. So, you know, here and I go, oh my God, do you want to go back? I go, no, I don't want to go back. We're going to stay here. So we did, and we stayed for 2.5 years. And we endured the long Rochester winter, which is brutal. We had our first Thanksgiving, a white Thanksgiving, the week before, and it was beautiful. Very quiet. This is fantastic. It is the first time, of course. And so I'm going to jump into my graduation, my last year. It was a technical school, Rochester, and you can get your master's degree and your PhD. Very technical, hands-on. And I think the philosophy, I like the philosophy that they had when I went to school there. I don't know if it's still the same, where we shared knowledge. There was no secret. Everybody shared knowledge, and that was great for me. It was because there were no secrets and there was no competition about, oh, I know this and I know that and I won't tell you. So it was a wonderful experience for me. And my last year, I went to see my favorite professor, Charlie Arnold. Charlie Arnold taught illustration photography for the last year. And his class was basically a creative class. And in those days, it was analog. We did a lot of analog printing, which was the conventional photograph process. And so it was a lot of work, by the way. We had to go and shoot the assignment. We would come back. We developed the film, let it dry, come back again, do the contact sheets, select the images that we wanted to use, and then go back into the darkroom and print the photographs that we wanted to send for the class. It was a lot of darkroom work, a lot of time in the dark. So his class was basically more about creative. He didn't want to talk about the technical aspect of how we got there. He wanted to talk about the creativity. And that was the most important for him. And everybody, the crazier the idea, even though it didn't transfer to the two-dimensional surface that we presented, the better it was. Later on, as you get into the business and you get older, you realize the exercise that he gave us was so important, as important, I think probably more important than the technical knowledge. I would say even, but a little bit more, because if you're not creative, you know, how many times are you going to photograph a door or photograph this? And if the creativity is not there, you know, the wheel has been invented for many years, so there's really nothing you can do if you don't have that creativity. ideas to bring it into something different. Of course, I'm not saying that you can be unique, but you get inspiration from other artists, and then you make it your own. And that was the idea that he taught, and I thought it was a wonderful thing because we learn a lot. So at the end of my last year, I went to see Charlie because I actually got my degree in fine art photography, which is different from commercial photography. And I said to him, you know, Charlie, I'm really worried. I don't know if I'm going to make a living. And I just came from a class that the instructor said that 96% of us will not be photographers, so maybe like 43% will make it. It's a very competitive field. And so I know I'm not going to make it. And so he calmed down. So I was really very nervous and worried about this. He goes, well, listen, I know you like architecture, and Terry Bowman, another instructor, is going to teach architecture photography the next semester. Part of the field trip is going to be in Toronto, and then you'll be coming back to Rochester. And so you might want to learn a few things there. So I took his advice, and I took the class, and it was fantastic. Thank you, Charlie, for his advice and good humor. To this day, I'm very grateful for him, for what he did for everybody. And so, so I'm going to show you some of the things that I did when I went to Miami. I graduated, went to Miami, and then if anybody wants to guess what I started doing, I started working as a field bank inspector because I couldn't get a job. And what was that job description? It was going to people's house, knocking on the door, asking them why they didn't pay the mortgage. Fun, right? I lasted 5 months, and then I decided I can't do this, and I'm going to start working on the portfolio, which I already had. Of course, it was a student portfolio. It was very good, but a lot of people that knew would say this is a student portfolio. So, it was a compliment, but at the same time, it wasn't. So I started working on the portfolio, and I started showing my work little by little. I started getting hired. Editorial magazines started seeing my work. Designers and architects started reaching out, and the rest is history. I got assignments all over Europe. Every year I went to Europe. I had assignments. I went to Russia in 1989 when Perestroika opened, and so I also went to China. And I'll show you some pictures of what I did there. Turkey, South America, all over the place. And so I will show you some of the images, and then we'll talk about it, and I'll show you the sequence. And so this is my commercial site, and I'll just show you a few things here. This was done for House View. This was done for Architectural Digest. The architect is Clovindo Testa, very well known there. He actually deconstructed, and I don't know if you can see that, the arches. He would cut them up and paint them so you can get a three-dimensional space into the arch itself. As well as there's a little influence here by Gaudi at the door, or maybe Art Nouveau here. There's a certain aspect of it. It's a wonderful work that is for House Beautiful in South Florida. And I think you guys are going to enjoy this house because this is the Carolina. Carolina is a colonial town like Merida. And the beauty of it, same as it is here, is that it's a working town. It's not just a showcase. People live there. You see the students going to school. It has a wonderful ambiance. And so for me, it was really a beautiful experience going to Atlanta. And I went there a couple of times for work. It's a wonderful space, isn't it? Right, oh, it is, you know it? Yeah, yeah, I mean, this one, yeah. This is great. I wonder if that's a real thing. So this house was a bank. And the safe was on where the arch is. This is solid, it's like probably look like a German concrete, and so they opened it up and they made this pool in the center, and it worked really well. I think visually it worked really well. Unfortunately, they're not loading up all the images, so I'll go to another one. This was shot in Amsterdam, and this architect was Hugh Jacobson, which is a very famous architect. He has the Dutch motif on his architecture. I'll show you later. But check out the artwork. This is a Modigliani, and this is a Cezanne. I mean, the art there was like, and he actually was so casual about it. When we got there, he just kind of say, go and do whatever you need to do. And he left. This is the architecture. You see the Dutch influence that he has with these little walls here. And that is the entrance. Living. So I'll just show you a few things here. Let's see, Paris. Well, this is more like a little clip of the magazine. Southern Accent published it, and it was in Ile Saint Louis. So fantastic little island there. And this is this architecture is from Rochester Institute, a good friend, Lion, but a very good friend. We're like brothers. This was in Naples. I think if I'm going to fast. This is from a fantastic interior designer, Funny Hine, also a friend, working for the last 30 years. So it's funny how all my clients have become friends over the years because they keep using me. Now that I'm retired, I don't know what's being replaced, which is okay. And she's got very good taste. Some of these installation was made by Miriam, who did the styling for her, and she has her own business in interior design. It's not beautiful, it's a beautiful thing. Well, here's the house from the architect from Argentina, Domenech. Yeah, there we go. So, you know, as a deconstructive artist, he would break down the structure of, you see the stairs is really, it looks like a sort of magic things. This is a house in Cuba from Delphi Architects. And the house was built on an island. And it had a Chinese, has a Chinese motif for design. So the house is the architect. Let's see what else is there. This is another, this is more of an interior job. It's all part of Miami. Penthouse, beautiful view. Designed by Domenech. Very eclectic. And then we go to commercial. This is in Spain. And I can't recall the architect's name. This is a solar panel in Spain. They actually power a small city, Barcelona, outside Barcelona. This is amazing. Look at the scale of the person. To scale of that gigantic structure. And some of these are travel images that I did for assignments. So this is Russia, and the Catherine Palace in St. Petersburg. This is the Summer Palace. And as you can see, it was really cold. And the only thing that kept us warm was vodka. We ended up catching up to it because those little things that you buy that you break in your pocket, that didn't work. And then so we saw a bunch of people walking by with a little bottle, and actually it tastes really good. Better than here. I think it has to do with the cold. When you stand in the snow and you shoot and you set up your camera, you get really cold. It's not like just walking, you get your body cold. It's totally different. You kind of freeze because you're there without any movement. This is in Istanbul. This is the Domenech Palace. There was an assignment there for a book. And this was the harem, where all the beautiful ladies went. That color was awful. This is Russia. This is Pavlos. This was the son of Catherine the Great, who built his own palace, and it was a neoclassical. I think it was the prettiest one. They had a beautiful scale. He killed them, I heard. It's in the history. He was plotting to bring her down, and so she decided that she was going to put up with it. That's my smallest daughter, Sophia. Let's see what else is here. Istanbul. That's I guess Sophia. I guess Sophia is being closed out here. It's going to be a church. It's going to be not a church. It's not going to be a museum anymore. Did you guys know that? Yeah. Yeah, it's now no, it's going to be a mosque. And that's it. No more. Let's see what else is here. Chickens. Hospitality. This is a boutique hotel in Merida. It's really a beautiful hotel. South Beach. Villa Rotonda. This is a wonderful house by the famous architect. This is Palm Beach. This is in La Merida by David Hicks, a very well-known designer in the past. And he passed in 1987, I believe. Did beautiful. He's the guy that started the eclectic design, interior design, where he mixed antiques with modern furniture, and he was very successful. Very hard to do. I saw very little work that worked. I keep it. And this is a garden in Portugal, in the south of Portugal. He was hired by the ambassador of Iran, who fled when the revolution started. And they travel all over the world. I think this is a wonderful concept about creative and ideas about the class. And the way that he came up with this was that they travel all over the world, the client and him. And they went all over the world. And in India, he saw these elephants with the umbrellas. So he decided that he would put in the umbrellas, like the elephants, and then have the rosemary at the bottom and the tomatoes. I thought that was genius. That's design activity. How do you come up with that just by looking at that? And transfer it to a garden. I think it was great. This is Pavlos. Very cool. This is Palladium, Villa Rotonda, one of the views from the back. So, and I think this is just a little bit of show you what takes place sometimes in shooting. You have to do whatever you can. This is a helicopter. This is showing one of my pieces. This is with the client. This is Monsignor in Cuba. We photographed the colonial architect's church in Santiago when he got hit by an hurricane and they got destroyed. I was invited to go and I went, and it was a wonderful experience. So, and this is this is a Correos Museum. We exhibit that churches to make money for the churches. This is the camera that actually saved my butt in Russia. Because when we went out in the cold, all the cameras that had metal froze. I had a lens that cracked. Nothing worked except this camera. And why it worked? Because it was made out of wood and grass. Grass doesn't freeze. And all those shots that I did on the exterior was done with this camera. Otherwise, I would never be able to finish the job. It's amazing. That's just a little image. That is. That's one of the cameras that I use. Looks complicated, but it's a dumb camera. You have to do everything for it. It's not automatic. You have to do everything, focus, have the shutter, but it's a beautiful camera and it has the most incredible resolution ever. It's a wonderful piece of equipment. And we're going to go to the fine art. So after after 37 years working in architecture, 15 years ago, I decided that it's time for my dream to start coming true. And I started working on trying to do my work, my personal work. And that takes a little bit of time because it's not, it really isn't about just jumping into something. Architecture, photography is totally different from fine art in some ways. When you do commercial photography or architecture, you know exactly what the client wants, and you can actually get the best of it. When you do fine art photography, it's more a conceptual process, and little by little, you have to prepare mentally for that transition. It's not just, oh, I have an idea, work on it. It doesn't mean it's going to work. After years of not doing it, you got to get mentally strong and kind of like get into that mental way of thinking. And so I started with the underwater series. I'll show you what it was. The underwater series is a series. I'm sorry, it's very, they don't really look like this. I wish you could see it here. It doesn't even come close to what it looks like. And this series is inspired by masters photographer like Ansel Adams, not Ansel Adams, Edward Weston, Apple for income. And my idea was to follow their vision, not imitate them, because if you imitate them, it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. And if you want to make it your own as an artist, you have to get inspired by artists, whether they are photographers, plastic sculpture, anything, even life. It gets you inspired in your work. And so I follow them and I love their works, and I wanted to do something like what they did. But in order to make it my own, I had to do something a little bit different. And what I did was add an element, and the element was water. And so I submerged these images halfway, thinking that it would magnify the image. And it did not. And I thought it would. I thought it would be like a magnifier, and it did not work the way it was. But it did work in the sense that it was a very calming experience. When you look at the images, and I'll show you these, you can pass it around. It's going to be my next book. And you can pass it around. That is the cover. And it's coming up soon rather than later. And so it has a sensual kind of feeling. It also has a sunlight. It's very food soothing. And when I started showing them, I started selling, and they sold a lot. They're in an edition. And so, it did very well. And when you see them in giant format, they're just stunning. I think Mérida, you guys have seen it, right? And of course, I wish you could see it here because, you know, it has nothing to do with what you're seeing there. Maybe I should turn the light off and you can see them better. It's a little bit light. I love this one. This looks has a feeling of a mollusk. Some type of magic there. This is dragonfly. So this series started in 2005, and I finished. I'm still shooting it. But you know, I think I stopped because I started working on other things. So it's been like 15 years. Some of these were shot on film. So I didn't transfer digital until probably about 10 years ago. And so then I have a couple of friends that live here, Orlando and Jasmine, and in like 5 years ago or 6 years ago, they asked me to come, why don't you come to Merida? And you know, we love it here. This is a wonderful place. And I took their invitation to have a beautiful colonial, which I love. And I went and I visited them and I saw the city for the first time. I fell in love with Merida because a very intricate place to photograph. And so I spent 2 years coming back and forth photographing. I would come like maybe twice or 3 times a year and I photographed and I went back until I decided, okay, that's enough. And then in the beginning of 2018, I get an email from the ECC, European Cultural Center, and they asked me to invited me to exhibit my work at the Venice Biennale, which I thought was fantastic. Getting enough of that. And what better work than Merida, City of Light and Shadows. Their theme was time, space, and existence. So actually the work with what I was working in Merida, which has a lot to do with timing, textures, and I've worked with those things for a very long time. I'm very interested in this time and space because photography is about time and space. I think this is the timing, the space, and the change that occur after you take the shot. So it's like an evolution of many things when you document, when you use photography, I think. And so, let's see, so then in 2018, that year, 2018, exhibit City of Light and Shadow. This is a window box. And this is the cover of the book. And it's called this was called Early Departure. The reason it's called Early Departure, I didn't want to use anybody. I wanted to use a trace of someone, like shadows. of the people you can see here. And the shadows are something that is transitional because it goes away really fast. So it speaks about time, it speaks about texture, structure, and I use an architectural for the backdrop of these elements that I wanted to talk about. So when they asked me to show my work, it was shown with my friend Jorge Hernandez, the architect. He was also invited to show his work, and I had photographed all his work as well. And I'll show you a little bit of what the installation was for the Merida City of Light and Shadows, and it's not showing. So this is what we did. This is George's work on the right, and then Merida City of Light and Shadow on the left. And then, since we do a lot of work together in collaboration, we decided to put the Santiago, the colonial churches in Santiago, which we did together, and also the construction that we started many years ago. So I can go and photograph the structure, which are really interesting. I have some that I'll show you. Those are all. I haven't updated my website for a while for much time. And so George is a professor of architecture at the University of Miami, and he was invited, and we did another collaboration. That was great. We both found out that we were both together and decided to collaborate. He's a friend, sometimes a mentor, even though he's younger than me, but that's okay. This is one of his ceilings. This is one of the ceilings that, and it was done in different times. This was shot on film, by the way. And there were 8 shots, and then they were all put together in the frame. They're different frames, the framing dark, and they're pretty big. I think the average person was something like this. So let me go back to anybody recognize any of these images? This is the ice cream board. It's been here for a while. This is Medallón de Rana. Escudo de Rana is a frog shield. And this is Lágrima de una ventana, tear of a window, which I love. It's so simple. It is sometimes simplicity creates a lot of things that it comes into something very, I love it. It has a certain dimension. And I think the titles are important in art. Sometimes it can destroy it, sometimes it can make it even better than what it is. So I learned that the hard way, but it's not as easy as people think. So the series is an exploration of light and shadows in a chaotic environment, as we all know, and that's what makes it special. And I think Merida is a very special place for that because it has a lot to give. This shot is called Reaching Out. When I first looked at it, the shadow was like here, and by the time I started, it was down here. So in going back to what I was saying, it has to do with time, or it has to do with time, it has to do with patience, it has to do with a lot of elements that I did not want to do color because color totally changes the meaning sometimes, and people get distracted by it. This is called locomotora. I think it's very funny because that shadow is from the building. And it's not, but it doesn't look like an old locomotive. Final phase. And of course, we have the wonderful craftsmanship that they have here. And they are just unbelievable. They've been working this, and they keep at it. And they're just really good craftsmen. This is called Los Minat. I'm sure you can figure out why. If not, then I'll tell you later. Again, this is departure again, and it's not, you don't see it here, but you see that shadow, it's not disappear. And same out it's coming and pull out as I discussed before. Tree shadow. This is 68 to the right. So this is como era, como fue, y como es. So how it was, and you can imagine how this was when it was built. It didn't have all those electrical. So you have to kind of figure out or imagine the magic of this place without the electrical wires, the magic of the place with it, because it becomes like another magic, a dimension of what it became and what it is right now. So to me, it talks a lot, it says a lot. And I think it's a powerful image to just enjoy. When you blow it up, you can really see the details in it. Unfortunately, the projector doesn't really do that. And it's a shame because you can enjoy it really. And then this is Sombra Carrasa. This is the translation. This shadow that hugs. Figura y shadow, figure with angles. Conjunto. It's small. To me, it feels like a musical paper there with all the notes, musical notes. Double take. This is not part of the ideas of shadow, but it's a nice image. Moon rise over people. And this is shadow chase. This is the last one. And so, thank you for coming. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer. And I have copies of the still. 925 pages. Any questions? Thank you guys. Thank you. I hope you enjoy it.